in Chennai. The ED going into the secretariat without the permission of the state government or anything is unheard of, and it's a direct violation of federalism. Number one. Number two, the ED and the CBI are being used as political weapons by the current Modi government, and this weaponization of the central agencies is reaching a situation where it's a direct assault on the federal rights of the states and an assault on democracy because it assaults the opposition parties and their leaders. The argument that if somebody has committed a crime, is it wrong for the ED to investigate? Of course it's not wrong. But what is the result of this investigation? The ED has today filed more than 5,500 plus cases on which investigations are proceeding, and 95% of all the cases against politicians are against opposition party leaders. If the truth has to be pursued, if corruption or whatever be the criminal charge, that has to be punished, then what is the result of these 5,500 odd cases? Out of these, only 25 have been put up to the judiciary for a cases and the conviction. And out of this 25, only 23 have been convicted. That is, the total conviction rate of the ED cases today is less than 0.5%. So this is clearly an issue of political harassment and how central agencies are being misused. Now, what today I want to discuss, paying actually a tribute to the manner in which Comrade EMS would be thinking and formulating his own thoughts, though we can't reach those heights, but nevertheless, that approach, that methodology is something we'll have to adopt. And while I was coming in, I saw the portrait of Dutt Master at the gate. Dutt Master and Murli Master have been running the virtual spine or the backbone of the entire EMS SMRITHY regularity and the foundations and the richness of the people they used to invite. We miss them today, but our homage and they'll always stay in our memory. But to follow up with the methodology that EMS used to adopt, that challenges to democracy and federalism are not to be measured in terms of individual instances like what happened yesterday in Tamil Nadu that I mentioned about the ED. Yes, EMS government was dismissed in 1957. 67, you had also the governments in Bengal, the United Front governments in Bengal, they were dismissed. The communists were the first ones to be victims of the misuse of the constitutional provision of Article 356 and direct attacks against federalism. Democracy has been undermined in India from various periods and various times. During the Congress time, you had the emergency. Now you have, without any emergency being declared, the encroachment on the fundamental rights guaranteed by the Indian Constitution, growing very, very rapidly and almost universally. The undermining of democracy is taking place in multifarious ways today. But why are all these attacks happening? Is it only because of the subjective desire of the ruling party at a point of time? Or are they objective reasons that are creating a situation whereby the declared constitutional provisions continue to be violated by the Indian ruling classes? Now, this is a point which needs to be properly analyzed and understood. Otherwise, our struggle to safeguard democracy and federalism will also be piecemeal. One attack happened here, therefore we oppose it. That is not safeguarding democracy or federalism. Yes, opposition is absolutely correct. But why is this happening? And for there, I would like to draw your attention to go back slightly into the history of the evolution of the Indian political system, or what we have today enshrined in the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution did not evolve out of a visionary outlook of individuals. It evolved out of a epic battle by the people of India for our freedom from the British. And in this epic battle and struggle, certain ideological positions were thrown up which required to be answered. And what was the main ideological proposition? What should be the character of independent India? We were fighting the British. Gandhiji gave his first non-cooperation call in the 1920s, which he withdrew, calling it a Himalayan blunder. That led to huge frustration, and that led to a lot of growth of the left ideology and thinking among the youth at that time. Bhagat Singh personifies it in the most perfect manner. And during that decade of the 1920s, in answer to the question, what should be the character of independent India, emerged three visions. One was that given the diversity of India, its multinational character, its multiple languages, multiple religions, multiple traditions, etc., multiple ethnicity, with such a vast diversity, this country can remain united and can progress only under a secular democratic political structure. And this secular democratic republic idea was born both amongst the leadership of the national struggle at that point of time, that is the then Congress, and the left, the communist vision. The Congress vision talked of a secular democratic republic, that is the future character of India, independent India. The communists said, yes, secular democratic republic is essential to keep this country together and the people together, but India cannot stop there. The political freedom we achieve by throwing out the British, that political freedom has to extend to the economic freedom of every individual, and that is possible only towards socialism, only under socialism. So a secular democratic republic with a socialist orientation moving towards socialism is what should be the character of independent India. And that was the position of the Indian communists. As opposed to both these visions, you had a third vision that emerged, which argued that the character of independent India must be determined by the religious affiliation of its people. Now, this vision threw up a twin forces, one arguing for a Hindu Rashtra in India, which was the RSS, which was born in 1925 again. The Communist Party was formed in Tashkent in 1920, reorganized and formed at Kanpur in 1925. The Congress Party came out with its understanding of what is a secular democratic republic, with its Motilal Nehru Commission in 1928, which ended up with the Karachi resolution of the AICC session, again in the same decade. And the third vision also emerged in the same decade, with one talking of the Hindu Rashtra, which the RSS propagated, and the other, the Muslim League led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, speaking of an Islamic republic. So the battle between these three visions, a secular democratic republic moving towards socialism with a socialist orientation, and a religiously defined India of a Hindu Rashtra or the Islamic Republic. The battle between these three visions is what is also continuing even today when we are talking of the threats to democracy and federalism today. What is that linkage? How is this happening? The Muslim League and the RSS conceptions unfortunately led to the partition of India, that is mostly of Punjab and Bengal. And this partition created and cemented the animosity between the religious groups, between the Hindus and Muslims, which unfortunately continues to fester today. And the frustration that India did not accept the Hindu Rashtra while Pakistan was created as an Islamic republic, and that the Indian national movement stood firm on the secular democratic republic attitude, is what led to the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi. But at that time, when we thought that India declared independence and the constitution was adopted, this battle is over. That was a mistake. That battle is continuing even today. And the battle is to convert the secular democratic republic into a rabidly intolerant, fascistic Hindutva Rashtra. And that is the battle that is taking place in the current context today as a continuation of the battle between these three visions. This is one stream of thinking I think we should keep in mind. The other point also that should be kept in mind is that India, as we talked about earlier, is a diverse country with multiple diversities, unparalleled amongst any other country in the world. Now, this sort of a situation leads to a tendency where there is a unifying force amongst this diversity. That is, the threads of commonality that exist in this diversity, strengthening that unifies this diversity, and the separate distinctive identities of this diversity tends to keep pulling backwards the concept of a united India. India, by its very nature, has got both the forces, the centrifugal and the centripetal. You have the unifying force on the basis of a unifying vision of a secular democratic republic, and you have a divisive force where each nationality, linguistic nationality, whatever be the aspirations, they keep talking of a separate identity or strengthening their own identity and the character of their set of people. Now, this is a tendency that continues even today. There are forces in various states which talk of separatism, reasons being regional backwardness, regionals being ethnic identity. What is happening today in Manipur, whether it's between the Kukis and the Meiteis, the question of ethnic identities, these sort of forces are also coexist in India. So you have the centripetal forces and the centrifugal forces. One that unites, one that divides. Both coexist. So how do you balance this? This can only be balanced when each of the diversities of India are treated as equal, respected, and their identity legalized through a constitutional recognition. Now, in the absence of that, you will have this tendency of the centripetal forces trying to separate. Now, both these aspects, the battle between the three visions and the Indian reality of centrifugal and centripetal forces, if you put both of that together, we understand the pressures of how what was constitutionally visualized democracy and federalism, how that continuously comes under strain. And that is why you find when the Congress articulated a secular democratic republic, the economic trajectory for India that it chose of an independent path of capitalist development, these two were contradictory. They set in motion centripetal forces. To develop capitalism, you required a unified Indian market. If you require a unified Indian market, you require a unified Indian state. A unitary state is a requirement for capitalist development. But constitutionally and given the character of India, we have developed a federal state where the Constitution first article says, India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. There is no India without the states. So that is the definition of our country. But the development of capitalism requires a unitary state structure for a unified market and for a unified labor force that can be exploited. Now this contradiction led the Congress party then to keep on continuously violating both democracy and federalism. 57, 67, the misuse of Article 356, the imposition of emergency. All these are not because of the Allahabad High Court decision on Indira Gandhi, that's why emergency came, etc. Those are all superficial explanations. But the time of 1970s, by the time the crisis of capitalism in India had developed to such an extent, you required a strong centralized state. And that strong centralized state was sought to be created through the emergency, which the people overthrew. That's a different aspect. But the question to understand is, the Congress party was stuck in its own contradiction of having been in the leadership of the Indian freedom struggle, articulated the secular democratic republic, the Karachi Congress AICC session declaration, and the statement of objectives, which is the basis of our constitution today, was authored by the Congress, but yet in practice they were practicing the development of capitalist development, which required the unitary state structure. So that's why these sort of tendencies in the Congress and the authoritarian nature of the Congress, anti-federal, that developed. That was one aspect of it. But qualitatively, the difference comes in. Congress could not break out of its secular democratic character commitment in the past, but it was tinkering with the constitutional thing by violating democracy and federalism. When this process is going on, as global capitalism also developed into today's neoliberal globalization with the development of international finance capital, you must have discussed all this yesterday. With the development of international finance capital, what is required was an Indian state that will be integrated to the leadership of international finance capital and the neoliberal outlook. Now both international finance capital and neoliberalism require a strong centralized laws that will determine the economic activity of the country and a strong state that will keep on expanding avenues for profit maximization by international capital. So you require a state that will bring in these agri-laws, these agricultural laws. You'll require a state that will privatize your public sector, privatize your resources, privatize your services, your public goods, privatize your mineral wealth, privatize your public facilities like electricity, water, public transport, everything, so that private capital can keep making profits. Now, such a strong state also requires a unitary state structure. This is one aspect. The conversion of a secular democratic republic into a fascistic Hindutva Rashtra also requires a unitary state structure. That is the other aspect. And both these converge under the Modi government. And that is the qualitative difference today from the past. And that is what leads to the emergence of the communal corporate nexus in India today, with crony capitalism leading the roost. At the same time, for the RSS to convert the secular democratic republic into their fascistic Hindutva Rashtra, what is required? What is required is also the undermining of this particular constitution which guarantees both democracy and secularism. So therefore, what you need here, what you have to note here, is that in order to establish their fascistic order in the country, destroying the secular democratic republic, the Modi government has managed to enlist the support of the Indian ruling classes and its leadership, India's big bourgeoisie, which is today your Adanis, Ambanis and all the others. So he's managed to enlist the support of the Indian ruling classes and enrich the support of imperialism. And therefore, India under Modi is turned out to be a very subordinate, a servile junior partner of US imperialism in global affairs. So your surrender to imperialism, surrender to Indian ruling classes, is to get their acquiescence to change the character of India from a secular democratic republic into a rabidly intolerant Hindutva Rashtra. And that is the background of these assaults on democracy and federalism. Unless we understand this, this is not a one-off attack like yesterday's ED raid or something that will come in the days in future, or like the BJP practicing democracy, whereby now the saying in Delhi is that in any election, whoever may win the election, it is the BJP that will form the government. That is how you buy up your opposition MLAs, how you do your horse trading, how you do all that thing, how democracy is being completely undermined. And yes, international agencies are calling us today an electoral autocracy. India is not a democracy, an electoral autocracy, and the attack on the democratic rights of all dissent, expression of dissent. Yesterday you saw the former CEO of Twitter coming out and saying what he said, saying that in India they threaten us against anything that's put out against the government, particularly during the farmers' agitation. The government's defense is that's an outright lie. And why did he say after he quit his job as the CEO? If that is the problem, the present CEO, Elon Musk, who now bought over Twitter, he has gone on record to say that it's very difficult to uphold freedom of expression in India. And I do not want to risk the Twitter employees by insisting on upholding freedom of expression. That is Elon Musk's statement. That the pressure is being put to manufacture consent, as Noam Chomsky said. And manufacturing consent means also to attack all dissent. So it is the media ecospace has been taken over to support this fascistic project. The fundamental rights of all Indians are today being brazenly violated. For 3 years now, 4 years, the Elgar Parishad people are in jail under UAPA without even a charge sheet being produced against them. 4 years. So the logic of the Modi government is what? The case against you will not be sustainable under law. You will be acquitted. But by the time you are acquitted, you have been in jail for 8 to 10 years. That means you already suffered the punishment. That is, we'll punish you even when the law exonerates you. And that is the methodology of how the fundamental rights of the people are being attacked. The rights of the state governments, whether right from Goa to earlier Karnataka to Madhya Pradesh to Northeast, and everywhere, Maharashtra, everywhere democratically elected governments being toppled to allow BJP to form the governments. And these attacks, misuse of the central agencies, and undermining independent constitutional authorities, which are the checks and balances in a democracy. The parliament, we saw what happened in the last parliament session. because Modi did not want to answer a question on that Adani scam and scandal. The whole parliament session was disrupted by the ruling party. And then Modi claims that the attack on Adani is an attack on India. Attack on me is an attack on me, meaning Modi, not me. I mean, that is, Modi is an attack on India. Attack on Adani is an attack on India. That is, Modi, Adani are the expressions of Indian nationalism. Any attack on them is actually an attack on India, according to them. And that is the communal corporate nexus. Modi, Adani. And that is why Parliament is disrupted. Your judiciary, lot of pressure for it to toe the line of the executive. Your election commission, brazen violations of them by the Prime Minister, Home Minister of the Model Code of Conduct in the last Karnataka campaign. Prime Minister appeals to people to vote in the name of Bajrang Bali. No, Election Commission doesn't take cognizance of it. The Home Minister says anybody voting against BJP is voting for Tipu Sultan. No, cognizance taken by the Election Commission. Now, brazen communal campaigning that goes on, the institutions, independent institutions are undermined, and of course ED and CBI are grossly misused like they are. So what is the entire crux of the discussion we have been having so far? That these attacks on democracy and federalism are not separate entities that have to be defended in a separate compartmentalized way. These attacks have to be defended in defending what we call the concept of the idea of India, that is an inclusive India, that includes all our diversities, against the fascistic project of the RSS, which is an exclusivist India. And this exclusivist India will only lead to the centripetal forces that I was talking to you earlier, of completely disrupting the unity and integrity of our country, setting in motion for the disintegration, which is very unfortunate, which we have to stop at all costs. So to sum up this entire thing, I don't know how much time you have allocated to me. Mr. President? Okay. So, to sum up all this, what does this entire thing mean? That the battle of three visions and the centripetal and the centrifugal forces contradiction, you put them together, what does it lead to? That if you want India to survive and prosper with its diversities, with its multiple identities, then you will have to ensure that this constitutional order is safeguarded and strengthened. But if you want to convert India into a fascistic Hindutva Rashtra, then you have to ensure that constitutional order is destroyed and in its place a unitary structure based on the Manusmriti degree of social injustices, that will have to be established. That is the battle. So the battle is not today defending Stalin for the attack of ED last night on one of his ministers. That's of course important. That is important, no doubt of it. But that is not all. That is not the end of the matter. The battle today is the larger issue that we have to safeguard democracy and federalism in our country today. You know, as far as federalism is concerned, I'm sure yesterday Thomas Isaac would have told you with all the fiscal federalism, what is the attacks, how the states are being denied, etc., how the constitution is being violated, how state subjects are being enacted by the center, like cooperatives, etc. Everything else, yes, all that is correct. But all that is happening in the larger context. And that larger context is the battle now between those who want to convert the secular democratic republic into a fascistic Hindutva Rashtra and those who want to safeguard the secular democratic republic so that each one of our multiple identities is respected with equality and safeguarded. And that is where you'll have to realize, because you've got so many of your Malayalis now all over the world. When they go outside, they say they are Indian. When they are there amongst Indians in that foreign country, then they say they are Malayali. When they are there in their Malayali Cultural Association, then they'll say, I'm from Kannur, I'm from Ernakulam, I'm from Thrissur, etc. And when they are there in the company of only people from their district, then they'll talk about their locality, their area, etc. Now this is apart from their caste, apart from their religion. They could be Hindu, Muslim, Christian. They could be upper caste, lower caste, whatever it is, plus their regional identities. So every one of us has multiple identities. When I'm abroad, I'm Indian. When I'm in India, I'm a Telugu-speaking person. If I go to my Andhra Pradesh, I'm from coastal Andhra. If I go to coastal Andhra, I'm from the delta region of the coastal Andhra, between Krishna and Godavari districts. Each one of us has so many identities. The only way to safeguard this country is to respect every one of those single identities. And that is what intrinsically our Constitution says. Now, this is the larger battle. If you want to safeguard our democracy and federalism, if we have to meet the challenges that are being posed today, we have to unitedly defeat this challenge of converting the secular democratic Republic of India into a fascistic Hindutva Rashtra and go back to the communist vision of what should be the character of independent India, that is a secular democratic republic with a socialist orientation, moving to convert the political independence of India into the economic independence of every individual. And that is the left agenda, which is the only alternative today to safeguard the secular democratic republic and to defeat the challenge being posed by the Hindutva fascistic forces. And this is where the unity of all secular patriotic forces is required. And that is what we are trying to contribute to achieve. 23rd of this month, there will be a meeting of the major secular opposition parties, and we'll chalk out the need that, first of all, to accept that need to defend India, Indian Constitution and our secular democratic republic. If we have to defend India, these challenges for democracy and federalism being mounted today can only be checked by ensuring that those who are mounting these challenges, that is the BJP holding the government and holding the state power, cannot misuse the government and the state power to destroy the very constitution, democracy, and its tenets, its four fundamental pillars, that is secular democracy, economic sovereignty, social justice, and federalism. These are the four foundational pillars of our constitution. All four are under attack. If we have to defend democracy and federalism today, we have to ensure that the BJP does not and cannot hold the reins of state power and the central government, which they are using for this objective. So that is where the unity of all these forces are required. And that is where the Congress, which has done so much to destroy democracy, federalism in the past, etc., must also learn that the only way the country can be kept united is not to impose a unitary state structure, but to respect the federal state structure. And Article 1 of our Constitution, that India, that is Bharat, is a union of states. And that is what we'll have to ensure. And I'm sure there's a big battle, and 2024 will be a decisive battle in this larger war in defense of democracy and secularism in India. And Kerala, of course, has always played the leading role in showing the alternative path. And that alternative path is exactly what the LDF government today here is doing. That's safeguarding secular democracy with a socialist perspective orientation, moving towards improving the welfare of the people. And that is the alternative on the basis of which we'll have to move forward. And it's a big challenge, but all of us together will have to rise to the occasion to save India today. And I'm sure EMS SMRITHY has given this opportunity for all of us to discuss in depth some of these issues. I'm sorry I could not share with you in Malayalam what I had to say, but I don't know how much of my English has been able, because if I spoke in my mother tongue, you won't understand Telugu. And that is the problem. If you speak in your Malayalam, I try to follow, but I don't fully understand. My Telugu, you will not understand. So you and I, both Indians, have to speak in English so that we communicate with each other. That is our Indian reality. And Mr. Amit Shah wants to impose Hindi on top of it. And then he says, no, this will be the language. And this is how they will disintegrate the country. Anyway, that's a different point. So my apologies that I had to speak in English for some time. But thank you very much for having listened to it. Namaskar.